how long will you give Putin?
A couple of weeks. We're going to figure it out.
Do you think you'll have to intervene at some point?
Look, it takes two to tango. You understand that. I wanted to have a meeting with those two. I could have been at the meeting, but a lot of people think that nothing's going to come out of that meeting. You have to be there. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. But we're going to see. In the meantime, people continue to die.
That was President Trump on Friday on the prospects of a meeting between Russia's Vladimir Putin and Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelenskyy. The week began with a push for peace, with a visit to the White House by Zelenskyy and Europe's most influential leaders. The White House said Putin had promised to meet with Zelenskyy, but now it seems the Russian leader has no intention of meeting with Zelenskyy, at least not anytime soon. The two leaders have actually met before. It was 5 years ago when Zelenskyy was a newly elected president. A look back at that meeting may provide some clues about the prospects for another meeting and another try at peace. For Ukraine's new president, it was a political gamble. December 2019, President Zelenskyy, who had been on the job for just 7 months, traveled to Paris for a summit of the so-called Normandy Four. French President Macron, German Chancellor Merkel, and Russian President Vladimir Putin. It was the first, and so far the only time, Volodymyr Zelenskyy would come face-to-face with the man who would later launch a full-scale invasion of his country. Putin had already illegally annexed Crimea in 2014 and invaded the eastern Donbass region, where he had engineered a separatist civil war. A 2015 peace agreement had brought an uneasy and uneven ceasefire. Soldiers continued to trade fire and die. Zelenskyy had campaigned on ending the fighting. He eagerly sought a meeting with Putin and signaled he was ready to make several concessions to get it, hoping for peace. But the notably younger Zelenskyy, not yet aged by the weight of war, was a political novice, a comedian turned politician. Putin was anything but. Seated before the press for a pre-meeting photo op, the Russian leader showed he'd been here before, signaling the newcomer to turn around. Zelenskyy took the hint, spun around, and smiled for the cameras. Back home, some Ukrainians were not sold on the summit. They gathered outside the presidential palace in Kyiv to watch the day unfold. Many feared their new president would cave to Russia. We're here to demonstrate to our president, one protester said, that people are not indifferent and we don't want capitulation. The talks went on for 8 hours, but the summit achieved little. Putin refused any compromise, insisting elections be held in the eastern territories while Russian forces were still there. Zelenskyy refused. The two sides did agree to a prisoner swap and a full ceasefire by the end of that year. The prisoner swap deal held. The ceasefire did not.